Good evening, everyone. I'm Zach Hughes, and this is Hot Topics, February 1st, 2026, and I am your host. This evening, we are going to dive into um, a couple of disasters that I wanted to talk about. One will be giving you a update, and the other one will be paying a tribute. So actually, the first one I'm going to talk about will be the paying of the tribute, paying tribute to both, but giving you an update on one of them. So we'll be talking about Columbia, which happened 23 years ago today, and then we'll also give you an update on the plane crash in the Potomac River last year. The NTSB has finally come up with its findings. I'll give you a basic synopsis of what we probably already knew. And further, we'll be diving into the Columbia, as I said, and so let's get right into it, and we might have some time to talk about a few other things as well. Bear with me this evening as I go between screens to bring you these items. And so let's dive in. The first thing I'm going to do this fine evening is we are going to put the Hot Topics Facebook page up, and I'll give you a little bit of a word about that. Let's see if we can even do it. It's giving me a little bit of a problem here. There it is. I should be able to do that. Okay. And there we go. That's the Hot Topic page. I wanted to give you a little word about that. Okay, so what's going to happen is that after about a month or maybe less, I will give you a link to go to the show. They will be over on YouTube for the most part, and I'm still transferring old shows over there as well. This is due to the fact that Facebook has limited storage to 30 days. For those of you who like to put on live content, you might want to know that. Okay, so this page will give you access to posts that I put up between shows and other content. It will also give me a little bit of a fan base, so go on over there. If you haven't already, give me a follow, and we'll continue with the show. Okay, folks, so I want to dive in to the show tonight, and so just bear with me for a second while I do that, because I need to grab the first link that I want to put up. I'm sure there's a much faster way to do this, but this is my way of doing it. Okay, let's just do this real quick. Let's see what's going on here. I just got to find my way back over here. There we are. Sorry. It's so many screens. It's so much fun doing that. Okay, so, whoops. Okay. Let's see here. Well, I'm trying to get over there. There, that's better. Okay, this is going to give you a little bit of background on my story that I'm going to talk about with you, and I'm actually going to actually go over there as well. So this is what I'm going to be talking about with you for the next few minutes. This was Columbia. It was Space Shuttle Columbia. And this event happened 23 years ago today. I'm going to give you a little bit of a background on the orbiter Columbia. The orbiter Columbia was a space shuttle. It launched on April 12th of 1981 and was really the first of the shuttles to go up into space as part of the shuttle program. And it was the oldest shuttle on the in the fleet, um, and over the years had been refitted here and there. Um, and this mission, STS-107, was canceled many times. It was or postponed many times. Apparently, it was supposed to happen in 2001 originally, but had been postponed for a number of reasons. And finally, on January 16th, 2003, Columbia launched into orbit. Now, the mission was to do a bunch of experiments around human body and other things, and so a lot of experiments, and the crew was going to do the work in two teams over 24, in a 24-hour period, basically continuous. So this was one of the first times of that. Plus, they utilized a laboratory system, and this was a 16-day mission. The shuttle had launched at 10:39 Eastern, and everything appeared to go okay. As always with these missions, this is sort of a routine. I still remember this on January 16th. I kind of just treated it like it was another mission. Thought it was really cool that an Israeli was on a flight, and I really just carried on. We got so used to these missions that that's how that happened. Hey, Elizabeth. And so we got so used to these missions that it's just another day. So the shuttle launched. Everything was fine, but a review of the launch footage showed something shocking, actually. And that was that a piece of foam had broken off and had struck the shuttle tile and damaged. It might have damaged some of the heat sensitive, or not heat sensitive, but the heat tiles, which are necessary to protect the shuttle on reentry. Anyway, this necessitated reviews by engineering teams, and these reviews occurred. And I want to say about day one or day two, the crew was told about it, but very briefly. They were basically told in case the media asked them a question. And there was nothing really, they were told not to worry about it. But the issue is, did this foam, which went very fast, so we think, well, the foam is nothing, right? The problem is when it broke off, it struck the shuttle very fast. So this created some damage, most likely created damage. They weren't sure. That's the problem. They didn't know for sure. And so these mission teams back on Earth were going back, back on down at Mission Control in Houston, were trying to figure out what to do about it. And emails were exchanged about this, and really to no true avail. Nobody really tried to do anything except for these engineers who begged to have access to a defense satellite so that they could take a look at the suspected damage area. And unfortunately, that didn't occur. Meanwhile, back in orbit, the crew was oblivious to any of this. They continued their work, got it done, and then on at the end of January, on January 31, they wrapped it up and prepared to return to Earth on February 1. And their return time was scheduled to be at 9:16 a.m. Eastern Time, touchdown at Kennedy Space Center. And unfortunately, no, unfortunately, that just wasn't going to happen. And what ended up happening instead was that while the shuttle was on re-entry, it broke apart very high up over between California and Texas. This breakup, I believe the breakup may have occurred over Texas. And this was later discovered to be because there was damage to the heat tiles. Now, why do I talk about Columbia? Well, 7 crew members died, and a few things I found interesting about this, and I'm not interested about people dying, but is some things survived, including a picture of the crew that had been taken, and I will post that after the show tonight. I will try to put it on here, as well as a video that was taken by the crew. And these items survived and were later found. And in that video, you can actually see them like routine, normal, no issues. And just about 9 o'clock, NASA lost contact with Columbia. And at 9:16, they realized Columbia was lost. That had pretty much ended a 17-year, well, not 17 year, I'm sorry. That had ended a significant amount of time of the shuttle running had resumed in September of 1988 until February 1 of 2003. That had, without major incident, although I am going to tell you about some interesting close calls. I don't really want to call them interesting, but I find this curious. So why do I bring Columbia into it? So to me, it was a beautiful day up here, February 1. I had planned to go to a meeting, and then I turned the TV on and saw George W. Bush at that time, and he was speaking, and the phrase across the screen was Columbia lost. And pretty much, took me into mourning again. It just really hard to understand. Again, we found, you look at the investigation. The investigation was very much similar to Challenger, in that the NASA culture had not learned a lesson from the first time around. And that's right. What I mean by this is there were emails that were exchanged begging managers to try to get access to a defense satellite so that they could take a look at the possible damaged area. What could they have done, though, if they'd found this damage? Well, some of the possibilities included launching another shuttle into space to rescue the astronauts. What was not an option, as some people asked, was why couldn't they go over to the International Space Station? They really couldn't do that. The International Space Station was in another orbit, and Columbia was not designed to dock with it. So that's what ended up happening with that. And that's the issue. So my issue, sorry about that, I was just checking to see if we're still going. Um, my issue with this is NASA's culture just really sucked on that. And I can tell you the investigation showed exactly what happened. And what happened is the foam broke off on this launch and it hit the tile area and damaged it, causing a small hole, which in turn caused the shuttle to break up. Um, and yeah, it's just very frustrating. A few things about the space shuttle, though, I want to tell you about that. And I talked with you about this last week. I have studied the space shuttle program for a long time. I studied Challenger. And one of the things about the space shuttle that people assume the space shuttle was all good to go. It was actually an experimental craft right up until the end of the shuttle program in 2011. And in fact, one of the good news is, that we resumed the shuttle program after this. However, I found out later that George W. Bush pretty much said after this disaster that after the International Space Station was completed or finished, our part anyway, or whatever, the shuttle program was to end. And that was the end of that. And I think that comes down to, what was really going on. With that program and the expectations of it, the stress of it, and all of that. But we got to get more missions in. I believe they resumed them. I'll have to double check, but I know they resumed them after, I think, a couple years. I'll have to double check and put it back in the chat for sure. But some facts about that. So when they resumed it, the flight director who had to deal with Columbia when it broke up, he got to launch the next shuttle. When they resumed. His name was Leroy Kane. But what was found is just, as I said, this culture in NASA that was somewhat a challenger, and it was just very shocking. But I think the bigger issue was our thinking that the space shuttle was good to go and do its thing, and reality is it continued to be an experimental craft. And I just want people to understand that. When we sent people up, it was a risk. And everybody, we can say, well, no, it was, but no, it was a risk every single time, and they knew about it. And this is why people were kind of critical when the idea of sending a teacher or a civilian up into space was introduced. They said this isn't, it's not. So I just wanted you to get a taste of that. Now, what was the outcome of this in general? The shuttle program ended in 2011. And we went, I want to say another 10 years, we had to rely on the Russian government to transport our folks up into the space to the International Space Station. But then we are basically, we're now using like the Dragon spacecraft and Artemis, which is going to take our people around the moon here. They did delay it, Artemis, but it's going to happen. But what I want to tell you is these stark differences in the Dragon aircraft and Dragon craft and the space shuttle. The space shuttle was really risky. You relied, it was really risky. I loved the program, and I miss that program. I mean, I was obsessed with that space shuttle in elementary school, along with the Challenger disaster, but mainly the shuttle program. and I had to watch every launch or try to. So it was a little sad to see the shuttle go. But the reality is, um, the shuttle was not a it it was just these disasters did happen, and the culture was there. So things were cleaned up even after this, and now it's interesting that they made it so much easier for objections to occur and for warnings to occur. But it only occurs after a disaster, which is very frustrating. Okay, so yeah, that is basically the Columbia disaster, and so I hope you go over there. I want to look at that real quick. So give me a minute because I want to be fair. Because I want to talk about, let's see, whoops. Gotta be careful. I'm on like two different screens that don't like me. Okay, so basically we had for the Columbia mission STS-107. The commander was Rick Husband. The pilot was Willie McCool. And then I'm probably not pronouncing this right, but Kalpana Chikawa, mission specialist. And then we have David Brown, Laurel Clark, Michael Anderson, and Elon Ramon. And that basically is the crew of STS-107, and may you rest in power and peace, and continue to do so. Okay, and the next story I want to give you an update on is pretty much what we knew. So, we talked about this last year, probably around this time. Yeah, I did a few shows on it. So, on January 29th of 2025, let's see if I have this right, PSA flight 5342 was a CRJ regional jet, and it was en route from Wichita, Kansas to Washington, D.C. And I'll just give you the short version of it. The flight was approaching Washington, D.C., Washington National Airport. It was doing a Mount Vernon approach, flying northward toward runway 1. They called into the tower for landing clearance. They were given the clearance, or they were asked if they'd be willing to switch to runway 33. This necessitated like a sidestep. And they agreed to do that, and they reconfigured the plane to approach runway 33 at Washington Reagan. And while descending for a final landing, or not final, but a final approach landing, they collided with a U.S. Army helicopter. And this killed everybody on the regional jet and the helicopter, with a total of 67 people dying that night. Now, what people were initially saying, and what they really upset me for, is they were saying, well, if Trump hadn't fired the FAA administrator, whatever it was, or if this didn't occur. And I said, oh, no, that's not what this was. This was something that everybody knew about as far as Washington is concerned. in the aviation world. And that is that that air corridor is tight with all kinds of aircraft. And disaster could happen. It's a very small corridor. And helicopters flew through there all the time. And pretty much what the NTSB has said, and I will find the report and get that over to the to these comments for later view, is that this could have been prevented. And simply put, that air corridor around the helicopters was very close. You know, the helicopter was only supposed to, I believe, be flying at around 200 feet, something like that, and it flew too high. And that's what was going on. But the bigger point is, if you have aircraft in close quarters like that, things like this can happen. And there's just this reality, again, of disaster. The only good thing that this new administration, year-old administration has done, in my view, is it has closed. It has made it so that aircraft can't go through there anymore like that. It's closed off. There's a permanent rule in place. There are exceptions, but it won't be like what was going on that night. So again, we talk about disasters needing to occur before major change. And may everyone involved in who passed away in this tragedy continue to rest in power and peace. What do you think about this? This idea of disaster needing to occur before true action can occur. How much is a life worth? And reality is, people knew about these things. In both of these stories, we have human thought process where, we can keep pushing that envelope. Same with Challenger. The idea, we can keep pushing the envelope until something happens. And it's just very, very frustrating to think about as we go through. So, what came out of this NTSB situation? Change. We talked about this last year on one of my shows. We talked about it. I don't know if I have the show anymore because Facebook did its thing with these shows, but basically what I had talked about is the NTSB. It looks to improve safety for every one of these crashes, for every one of these incidents. It looks to improve safety. And that is what happened here. The FAA responded in this case, and they closed off this corridor. And there's a new rule in place. So, would I still fly into Reagan National? Absolutely would. I have no concerns with that. I think flying is a safe mode of transportation. I think these things, there's always something that happens. I was just talking to a friend about this the other day. I get on the plane, I fly. I don't even think about it. I mean, it's in the back of my mind, sure. But probably not as bad as when I flew when I was younger after Delta 191 happened, and I was scared out of my wits. But then again, I was pretty young back then. I mean, flying to me is like, I'd love to go flying, and there is nothing like it. I tell people this, and I kind of get homesick from flying. I want to go flying again, and I have not. Yeah, it takes money to do that. So, but my point being is that I would do that in a minute. I have no qualms. I think that there's always an element of risk, but flying is generally safe. And I feel very comfortable with that and taking the train. That is how I usually get around. Um, you know, and just feels great. Um, but I want to just say, when these things happen, we feel them big, and you know, I still feel for everybody involved, and I feel for the families. I feel for the air traffic controllers that night. I, you know, and so that is the reality of it. When we have cultures that believe they can push the envelope, this is what can happen. Let's see if there's anything. Nope, nothing going on down the chat. Okay. All right. So let's switch topics here. I'm going to go into Mental Health Awareness Day this year. We held that on January 29th, just like we did last year. Oh, man. And I was able to go in person this time around. They held it at the Supreme Court Auditorium here in Montpelier. And it was really a productive day, unlike the day a year before. And what was the difference the year before? The difference was the year before, the new administration had been playing around with freezing grants for a little bit while it supposedly wanted to look them over and make sure that the money was being spent correctly, or whatever that was. And it scared a bunch of us. So nobody was really committal to doing much. This year, there is a bunch of activity going on in the legislature. And it is big. There's a bunch of bills going. And a few of the bills, places like Vermont Psychiatric Survivors are keeping an eye on. But there are a lot of bills going on, and Vermont Psychiatric Survivors is in contact also with Mad Freedom Advocates and other advocates around the state to make sure that our push is effective. It went very well. We were able to interact. The day was very well planned. And we were able to interact with our legislators. I was able to come away with something from a legislator, so I was very happy. And it just was the type of thing where you can get together with everybody. And I think what's interesting is over the years that event has done different things. I want to take a little trip back. I know people said this has been 11 years, but whatever. But it's actually been a lot longer. We've done these things through different various means. For instance, prior to what we do now, I remember attending the Washington County Mental Health Legislative Breakfast, and then another organization would put on a day event there. That was their annual. In fact, I think that was their annual meeting. But they brought the legislature in, and we were able to do it all in one day there. And now it's just kind of turned into, we do, Washington County Mental Health still has that legislative breakfast, but the Mental Health Advocacy Day actually happens each year around this time of year. And we go, and we're able to do things. We were able to do it at the State House, and then COVID hit, and we started doing it online. It's very effective. We were able to hear some very powerful stories. I think we can all agree that working together is the best thing. And I'm looking forward to working together with the other folks to give an effective push on important issues. Um, there are other things that we are not always going to agree on either. And, and I think that's why some folks were not present at Mental Health Awareness Day this year, which was, to me, unfortunate because Mental Health Awareness Day had a bunch of sponsors, and the concern, was there was some concern, so they didn't, come. There's this idea of belief in philosophy, but the reality is the peer base need to be there in order to, at the very least, get information and be part of that effort in some way or another. Some of the, just to give you an idea of what some of the bills are looking like. One bill will address, if passed, will address increased law enforcement training in addition to the current 8 hours of Act 80 training, which law enforcement officers get around mental health. That will be increased under this bill, plus there would be a ability of families to be able to get some sort of, or sue for compensation in the event of a, I believe, I'll double check, but they would be able to sue in the event of a, killing by law enforcement. And that's what was in response to this gentleman who died days after moving to Vermont. He died after having a mental health episode. He was shot by a state police officer. And so that is one of the bills. Another bill that is being brought back is forensic facilities. We'll be looking at that in, it looks like that's going to come up in March. And then there are a bunch of flurry of other bills that have been introduced as well. That is basically what is going on. But the best part of this is that we can all work together, and it's just really important. Now it definitely is. But there was, last year around this time was really difficult to make any committals, and that's really what's important. So that's what happened there. How is your self-care, folks? Are you doing okay with this cold weather? How are we doing with that? Are you coping with that? And I've got to say, it's pretty cold, even today. Now we're supposed to get a balmy 23 to 28 degrees this week. I say it's balmy because it's compared to better today. Excuse me. Hopefully folks are, safe out there tonight, who are out there, who have, hopefully they have shelter. I certainly take an extra step to make sure that people have shelter to the best of my ability during the cold conditions, because one of the things that I'm pushing for is special rules that would waive certain things during cold temperatures like this. And while 32 is cold, it's really bad when it gets nasty, like negative stuff. And I think I've always advocated for some sort of waiver. And what am I talking about? Well, let's say that someone gets kicked out of a shelter. They can be penalized from accessing hotel emergency housing for the fact they were kicked out of a shelter for maybe not following the rules. I think that should be looked at and possibly waived under certain circumstances. I think that, other things, I worry about a subset population, particularly the folks who are intoxicated. They cannot always access effective shelter because of this. So this is a concern of mine that I've been meaning to push, at least in one of these bills, offer written testimony to talk about this very issue here. One of the bills that I'm still reviewing it, so I'm going to kind of talk about next time maybe, is a bill that would, offer a voluntary return back to a person's home from here. And I have to just say, anything like that, that is in place actually somewhere here. You can actually do that already. There has to be certain things met to do it. And, I've assisted a few people in returning to their original homes, including a gentleman who decided to take a road trip and ended up here in Vermont and needed some serious support for 2 weeks before eventually reboarding a plane and going back to California. So one of the things that I am offering in writing to the legislature actually has to do with what we have in place already. And are we inventing a wheel again? One of the issues I have with this return home thing is that we have sent people back to where they wanted to go, whatever, and they come back because they have a connection. I think that needs to be understood. You cannot drive someone out. But the argument can be made that certainly it's better than being outside in cool weather. Wouldn't it be better to send them back to where they came from? Well, it depends where they came from. So, like, if you're going to send them to, I don't know, Montana or something like that, or Wisconsin in the winter, is that really going to work? And then there are waiting lists to get into shelters in other states. So there's all kinds of issues here. But my issue around this is, simply put, people will come back. It has always happened that way. And there's no doubt in my mind that, hopefully we're not reinventing the wheel. Now, the other bill I'm looking at, because you can tell I've swapped over to homelessness now a little bit, but is H91 is being given another shot. And again, we're going to see where that lands. I'm going to take a look at it. We'll talk about it more next week and go from there. Okay, so tomorrow, my friends, is gonna be, and I'll post them on the Facebook page, but tomorrow is Groundhog Day. And which way do you think the groundhog is gonna go? We're gonna get more winter? Or is it gonna be a warm-up? Well, we'll have to wait and see. We'll definitely have to wait and see, won't we? Alright, let me see. What do I want to do now? Next, actually, you know what I just realized, folks? We might have to come on at an earlier time next week because Super Bowl Sunday is next Sunday. Of course, I will be bringing back my favorite game, which is basically who do you think's going to win, but what's the score going to be? It'll be a final score tally game type thing. And I've done this for a few years now, since I started the show again. Just want to let folks know, in February at some point, I did say in the last couple months, but I'll say in February we are going to be bringing an orca show to the mix from our local public access. Me and my friend have to go up there and go through a process to do and then we'll go from there. So, looking forward to doing that. Some interesting stories in the world of public access and other type of media types. Brattleboro is considering will have an ordinance warning of an ordinance, possibly an ordinance on how media interact around, I believe it's around media interacting around law enforcement. This is in response to a fellow show by the name of Planet Hank. He goes out there and is on almost every police scene there is in Brattleboro, and some people have had enough because of how close he gets to the scene. And I actually commented to my friend about that, and I said, well, that's weird. He is quite close. I'm not so sure our law enforcement up here would tolerate it. And generally speaking, I have little rules around, how I deal with scenes when I go into scenes. I actually respect those scenes. I know everyone can argue with me about public, but there's also the matter of safety and how close is too close to a scene. And I don't know how many of you have watched those YouTube videos at night when you have nothing better to do and you see these what we call First Amendment auditors go in and try to film. Some people see it as a pain in the ass. Other people see it as, it's a First Amendment audit, right, to make sure they can still film. But either way you look at it, Brattleboro is looking to address this. We'll have to follow that. We'll get more to you on that going forth. What do you think? Do you think that police scenes and other scenes should be given a birth of distance? Or do you support the idea of having someone film right there? Let me know in the comments here, and I'll talk about it on a future show. I won't use your name, though. So, the reality of it is there's some stuff going on around that. We made it through January, everybody. We just have to make it through February and a little bit of March, and winter will be over, hopefully. This year we seem to have been paying the piper on winter, though. Hey, Caitlin. Yeah, you're saying I don't do that. No, you didn't miss much. You can watch the show later if you want. You didn't miss much. But I have talked about the first two topics already. But you can definitely watch the show later if you want. Yeah. So you're saying, Kaylin, you support the distance with police scenes and all that, right? That's what you're saying? Because I'm curious to see what people think. Yeah, I just mentioned that. Yeah, yeah, we talked about this reporter. This reporter is, his name's, the name of the feed is Planet Hank, and he likes to film really close to crime scene, to police scenes. And my take of it is Brattleboro Police is willfully allowing it. So usually police departments push back and say, please stay a distance. He's a bitch. Okay. Well, that's fair. Yeah. Why don't I just say it? That's fine. Yep. So you can tell that not everybody likes Planet Hank, not Project Hank. Like, probably should be a project. I think it's interesting. It would be interesting to see where this would go, particularly Um, and is there court, you know, is there case law on this? Certainly Brattleboro Police Chief Norma Hardy seems to think there's a case law on this, and seems to be that she's being on the side of caution around that. Um, so, I mean, but this to me is, this gentleman is too close. Um, it's a shock he hasn't gotten hurt by anybody yet. The police are there to protect and defend, but they won't protect me from Hank. And she's retiring. So Caitlin's referring to Police Chief Norma Hardy is retiring. And so this will be really interesting to see where this warned ordinance goes. And the reason I say that is because I'm curious if our friend, Hank will sue. Because he's relying on the Constitution in arguing this. And again, Norma Hardy, the police chief, has also said there's case law around this. But I'm wondering about safety. So every time I go past a scene, my first priority is not what's going on. It's a mix. It's what's going on, and then it's how safe is this scene going to be? Are we going to be shot at? So that is really what's going on here, Hank. If you want to know what's going on, why people are upset, Hank, it's because this is you're very close to a scene. And I would hate to see you I'm not saying hate, but, what if he got hurt? What if I'm out there filming and I get hurt? What happens, right? And we think we know better, but people have threatened to go after him. Well, of course they've threatened to go after him, because they don't want to be filmed up close like that. And didn't you say that he gets them at their most vulnerable times? Right? I mean, this is the thing, right? And, but this is what this business is about, in a sense, around First Amendment audits and, whatever you want to call it, influencers. This is what they do. While I don't really believe in going and filming up close to scenes like that. It is really close. And I appreciate that. Yeah. So it's an interesting thing. I don't know how many of you, as I've said, watched all these YouTube videos about, people trying to film in, predominantly, believe it or not, mostly post offices. I see this. I haven't seen it here. I did see one video where somebody was attempting to do a First Amendment audit on Church Street in Burlington, and I thought, wow, if you have that kind of time, go for it. And First Amendment audits are good, but do you really need to do them? And what are you trying to do? First Amendment audit is exactly what it sounds like in a sense, but it can be annoying. And there's just something about being filmed, I've noticed, that really upsets people. Really upsets them. They don't like being filmed. But contrary to belief, there is no expectation of privacy in public. So say I go out there and I'm taking pictures and you're out there on the sidewalk. Well, if you get into my film, that's the way it is. Because there's no expectation of privacy. So many times I've had people say, I have my permission, I can sue you. Nope. There's no expectation of privacy in public. And public is basically out on the street, just the or on, public property. It doesn't, I don't think it includes private places, which would be stores. And so I don't think that that's including that, but I could be wrong. And you definitely have an expectation of privacy in your home. Now, an argument, can be made around, well, if I'm homeless, where's my, that, and, take great care to make sure that when I do take pictures that, people are not in them on purposely, unless they want to be. However, if I capture your picture while out there, there is no expectation of privacy, and I'm, I watch these people. Oh, I didn't get permission. You don't have to give permission, because if you're out in public, I can still take your picture. It doesn't matter. And that's how that flies. Now, will I take your picture? No, most likely not. But you have the people like, Hank here, who likes to go out and do that sort of thing. Or, and I am moved by when he does his show. He says just because you got arrested doesn't mean that you're guilty. Well, that's very nice. I appreciate that. But we'll see what happens. And I don't know. Yeah, I sent it over to you, Caitlin. They are definitely warning an ordinance on this. So you can read that. I probably will have to copy the article for you again. Yeah, I love how newspapers don't allow you access unless you pay. Well, you have to pay for them. But anyway, yeah. So that is kind of something I'm following, and we'll kind of go from there. And for those of you who missed tonight, you can watch the show. And just want to give you a quick, warning again that after between a week and 30 days, I'll be transferring it over to the YouTube page. But I will put a link here so that you see where to go, and you can watch the show there. Let's see. Let's see. I'm trying to see what Caitlin is saying here. Oh, yeah, this is going to take a bit here. Let's see. Yeah. Well, yeah, that's not good. Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, definitely want to hear more from folks about how they feel about filming in close to police scenes, should it, like Hank does. And, it's possible that Hank could be using a camera that is zoomable. Maybe that's it, but it doesn't feel that way to me. It feels like he's in very close. And that's concerning for safety. I'm not against journalism in one piece. I know that Hank was handing out constitutions at the last one of the Brattleboro Select Board meetings, and it's not about that. It's about safety. It's about safety, and but it'll be one heck of a court suit if it happens. But if there's case law around it, then why isn't it happening everywhere else? What we see is common sense from everywhere else, and what we see is police departments are often telling people they need to stay a distance from each scene. So, yeah, but I was wondering if he's in close, Caitlin. It seemed to me, it felt like he was in really close. It'd be like me being on my scooter right there, right next to them. Yeah. Well, he also seems to have a little jacket going on there too when he goes out. Um, so, you know, maybe we'll see where this partnership goes when the new chief gets into the mix over Brattleboro. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So Brattleboro Police is allowing it to occur. And pretty much Norma Hardy said the same thing. She's allowing it to occur. She's basing it on the fact there's case law around it in Constitution. But I'm wondering about that. And that'll be fine until something happens to somebody who goes in close. And I mean, I've seen, if you watch the show, you'll see some close calls. I know I watched one with Hank, and he almost got knocked over. So, yeah, it does seem like they have some sort of partnership. Uh, but in, my experience working with other police departments, there's no way you would get in that close. No way. I love you. So, and that's why I like you as a friend. Emails have proven it. They have, and they try to deny it. Of course, they try to deny it. I don't think they're going to admit they have a partnership, do you? Well, maybe they would if it benefits them. I mean, there are programs where and I don't know if you know, but you can you can sign up to go for a ride along with the police. They do that. But this is different because it just feels like, he's in close. And I'm not worried about someone feeling, upset about it. I'm worried about the safety of the people in that seat. It's also can cause a lot of agitation. A lot of agitation. And as I think you told me, that Hank tends to catch everybody at their most vulnerable. Well, that's true. Because you're most vulnerable is when you're getting arrested by the police. Or you're having an ambulance trip to the hospital. Or, something like that. I mean, oh my goodness. Oh, goodness. Well, if Hank doesn't watch himself, could end up, getting in trouble like that. Hopefully he doesn't. What I worry about is him getting hurt. Because he hasn't gotten hurt yet, from what I can see. I don't think I've seen one of his videos where he gets hurt. But he's come close. And that's what I'm saying. I mean, I know people say, well, it's the public's right to know, and it is the public's right to know. But not and I've seen some comical movies about this, right? So the movie, I don't know if y'all remember the movie, some of you. Some of you were babies when this movie came out, but The Chase in 1994, and there's this scene where a news van comes up alongside the speeding BMW, and then they have to hit the brakes, and the camera goes flying, and that's what I'm talking about with scenes being in too close. The Idiot and Keen film. Yeah. So, I mean, hey, maybe we could bring Hank on the show. Just kidding. Um, but yeah, this is definitely a hot topic for Brattleboro right now. Um, they are going to try to, there's some sort of ordinance being warned on it. So we're going to have to keep an eye on that. In the meantime, if you want to look at Hank's work, just Google Planet Hank, and you can go over and take a look at some of his fine work. And then you can let me know what you think about his close interactions. And we can go from there. And then I'll keep an eye on this Brattleboro thing and see if it goes anywhere. And hopefully hopefully this doesn't turn into a court battle. But I think we have to have common sense here, and I think that's what we miss a lot of. Yeah, no, I'm not going to really let him on the show, Caitlin. Yeah, you got to get used to my humor once in a while. Sorry. No, I'm not going to have a show. Yeah, no. I wouldn't really have him on the show because I think that's not very productive. But, it's interesting to see him defending his work. And I suppose we're all going to try to defend our work, but the reality is, how many times has he nearly gotten hurt doing it? And then who gets blamed for that, right? So, and I think that's kind of missing here. I love you. I mean, that's really what this is. If you want to talk about this type of shows, like his and a few others I've seen, they are drama. For instance, you don't see me going out there and going and doing close-in filming like that. I actually, have rules in my mind about how to deal with certain situations and standards, and I don't do these First Amendment audits. I believe in the First Amendment, and I'll defend it. But I'm not going to go sit outside and film a sensitive facility just to test this stuff out. That's not my tea. Now, that doesn't mean that that's not someone else's tea, and they can go do that, and that's fine. That's what makes us a free country. So, if Hank wants to go do his Brattleboro police thing and, compromise the privacy of certain situations that, maybe he shouldn't be on the scene of, that's his deal. And if he wants to go throw Constitution books at City Select Board members, that's his business. But, and I know some in the community have also said that he likes that the community likes his work because it keeps them so-called informed. Well, there's also a newspaper for that. Just saying. I don't know what to think, but this is why I have you here to say to me what you think. And it is a hot topic, so it definitely qualifies for show cover. And what the heck, right? I wasn't planning to bring this up, but what the heck, right? Oh my goodness, you know what? It's about time for us to wrap it up, almost anyway. It's, I have to say though, if he wants to go out there, Caitlin, and do that, let him do it. I mean, that's his deal. But he shouldn't expect people to, be happy about it. I certainly wouldn't be happy with a camera up close like that. In a scene. And, and that, I've seen people